everyone, welcome to the Heroes Power. We have another wonderful interview here with Erho, part of the HGC Pro. Things have changed up a little bit though. How are you doing, man? It's really good to see you. Thank you for taking the time to interview with us and give us a deeper look into HGC.
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here. So eager to answer your questions.
Yeah, definitely. So like the one we've been kind of asking everyone is, how do you feel about the structure of HGC versus how it was before? I know you're a part of Naventic pre HGC, and you're a part of No Tomorrow during this first half of HGC. Just what do you think of the way Blizzard's running it? I guess.
I think the way they're running it now is much better. I think it's a more structured, reliable source of income for the top 40 players. But previously, it wasn't ideal for a seventh or eighth or even a sixth or fifth place team to make a reliable income off the game. But now it is. So, and of course, the incentive is still there to do well in the league. So I think they've done a good job. First and second place, I believe, gets paid more just for placing. And of course, if you go to any of the regional or world level events, you get paid even more. So the incentive to do well is still there. But yeah, it's better than it was before, obviously, as a competitive community in a whole. So,
okay, all right, cool. I believe we touched on this with our interview with Bad Benny, but what are your thoughts on the current meta?
well, I mean, I can only really speak to the meta that I experienced in HGC, because up until the last week, I believe we were on previous almost 2 patches behind. So the meta is kind of a double tank. It hasn't changed a whole lot, but I think with the PTR with Malthael, I think we'll start Melf's being changed. So we might see a little less double tank, but I'm not sure. But I can only, like I said, I can only speak to the HGC patches I played on. But the meta, I think, is good. I think it's a lot better than what it used to be. I don't like the only thing I would actually change about it is I don't like how long the fights can be because of double tank. I actually prefer the meta back about a year ago, where if someone's out of position, you're just dead. Even a little bit. I prefer more of the burst style meta. So with your healers being prevalent, I don't like Oriole style healers that can, if you don't take care of her very quickly, she can just heal a fight for 20, 30 seconds. I think it's just not good for viewership, not good for a player. So
Yeah.
those are my thoughts.
I do always
So.
enjoy seeing the pickoffs and stuff like that, and that dictating a course of a game entirely. That's always watching someone just get punished for being out of position is pleasing to me as a viewer.
And that has a lot to do with, they nerfed stun durations, they nerfed the damage on a lot of the mages. So they nerfed a lot of mages. So that just has a lot to do with that. They took out burst damage and they kind of increased the more sustained damage playstyle.
Yeah.
It's very hard to run a comp without having a good sustained damage in it right now. I can't see a good competitive composition that only has Jaina as a damage healer. Whereas a year and a half ago, if there was just a Jaina on a team for damage healer, you'd be like, oh, Kerrigan Jaina, that's a really good comp. Now it's just like, well, if they don't kill someone right away, the game's over. So.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't miss the lockdown comps. Those were just absolutely silly at times.
Well, I actually liked that a lot. I thought that had a much more. I thought that had a much more mechanically, I guess, rewarding playstyle for a pro player. Maybe not for the average player, but for a pro player, if you knew how to A, land a skill shot, and B, coordinate well with your team, you could always kill someone. Now it's just like there's so many ways for people to survive. It's just like
yeah, I know chaining stuns.
It just changes the way the game's played for a pro player. Probably for the average player, it's a lot less punishing if you're out of position, which is good for the average player. I'm fine with it. Something I prefer.
Right. Yeah. And chaining stuns is something that I was used to seeing in other MOBAs and stuff like that. So seeing, and while it was really bad at times for whoever was getting stunned, sometimes they could survive. But heroes, it's just catastrophic. You eat 4 seconds of stun, you're gonna die, pretty much.
Yeah, I don't even think getting stunned for 4 seconds is a thing anymore. It used to be. You used to be able to take Kerrigan ETC or something, or Murd and Tyrande, back when Murd and Tyrande was a thing, and they'd be stunned for a full 3 seconds from 2 basic abilities. Now I believe if you do that combo, you're stunned for a full 2 seconds. So like I said, less punishing, and they took a lot of burst damage out. So
I wanted to go back real quickly on something you had touched on. It was actually a question I had, but I could bring it up here. What are your thoughts on the patch cycle in HEC? Did that really affect your ability to scrim other teams? I know you guys were mostly scrimming HEC Pro teams, but anyone outside of HEC Pro, was it really hard to set up scrims with them at all?
we didn't really look to set up scrims outside of HCC. More not until we realized that we might be getting Crucible. We started playing. We started playing amateur teams, but even then, the amateur teams would come onto the tournament server and scrim us because they knew that we would be playing on the tournament server anyway. So during Crucible, I liked it. I liked having a steady, stable patch. They changed it up towards the end where they started doing more recent patches. I didn't like the abrupt change. I thought they should have just waited till next season to do the change. But that's, like I said, my personal flavor. They kind of approached all the players on an individual basis, like through email. What do you guys want? And everyone agreed that we wanted more up-to-date patches, so that the viewers. But I don't like the way they implemented it, which is at the very end, all of a sudden they just threw us on to Diva patch, I think it was, without Diva being enabled, which was a huge change because there's a lot of meta heroes that were changed, like Varian. I know off the top of my head, they nerfed some of his W's during that patch, so having to adjust to a meta so quickly is always bad for a professional player. Maybe not so much for a viewer because they're seeing a version of the game that they're used to playing, but if you put yourself in a pro's position where we've been playing 2-3 patches in the past, and all of a sudden now we're on a patch that, 2-3 patches in the future, there's so many changes we got to go back and account for. So, yeah.
Kind of a side question to that. When you guys now we've all seen the tournament realm on the launcher. Is that where you guys do your scrims from?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Tournament
that
patches.
Just occurred to me. So, a question you mentioned: No Tomorrow getting crucibled and easily surviving that particular fight. How do you feel about Even in Death coming into the HDC despite losing their Crucible match?
Rules are rules. Basically, B-Step was a team that, they just seemed to not be performing to the standard they're used to. So obviously they're going to make changes. Unfortunately, the changes they decided to make were K1 and CAF obviously left and went to GFE. iDream left and went to Naventix. So rules are rules. If more than 2 people are removed from a roster during a roster swap, it's just eliminated. I think that Even in Death deserves to be there. As of now, based on how they prefer in the Crucible, no. But can they improve and deserve that spot? Yes. Okay. So those are my thoughts on that. I don't think they deserve to be there as of now, but they're given a very unique opportunity to prove that they do belong there. So let's hope they can change things around there.
Very diplomatic answer. I like that.
Mm.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Speaking of No Tomorrow, so can you explain a little bit of what happened with that situation? Obviously, you've been let go from there, and from there, what are your future plans for Heroes? Are you trying to get onto another HCC Pro team? I know you can only say so much, but are you trying out for teams right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying out for Superstars. They're doing roster swaps. That's pretty public knowledge, so that's who I'm trying out for now. If I don't get on, that's the only team that hasn't locked down their roster yet. So if I'm not able to get onto that roster, my plan is to make an open division team with a lot of the talent that's floating around, obviously, because a team disbanded and then an amateur team got in, so there's a lot of floating talent, and they did a bunch of roster swaps too. So that's my plan there. And as far as me getting removed from No Tomorrow, we knew we needed to make a change. I wanted to make a change that didn't sit well with the rest of the team. So obviously, I'm the best option to vote off. So that's honestly what happened. During the first course of the season, Tiger JK and I butt heads a lot, but we were actually able to kind of mend that relationship, and it showed during the second half. We played very, very well, and Tiger JK and I didn't have any disputes whatsoever. So a lot of people said, well, Erho and Tiger didn't get along or something. We got along fine in the end. What ended up happening is that I wanted to make 2 roster swaps for 2 people on our team, and those 2 people kind of want to keep their spot. I don't blame them. So their option, instead of improving, in my mind, our 2 weakest links, was to just remove me, so there would be no,
no opposition to that.
no opposition, because it's good for them. It is, because you don't want to have a team that has any animosity on it, and if I want to remove 2 people and those people want to stay, and the rest of the team want those people to stay. You know what I mean? So it's just like it's me or them type of thing. So that's what they
Yeah.
went for.
So
I personally think it was a poor choice, but I mean that's up to them. I think
yeah,
they'll do fine.
sure.
I think they'll do fine. I think they'll still retain their HGC spot. I really think they will. Especially with Equinox being picked up, they vastly improved their melee flex spot by quite a bit. I believe their the melee flex Casanova is now playing tank, so if he can pick up that role, they improved as a team overall, in my opinion. So,
yeah. So kind of a bit on that. What do you feel about the volatility of HEC and A? It seems a lot more volatile than even EU or other regions. But is that just how competitive North America is, that it's hard for a lot of these competitive people like yourself to work together, or just when you all have different directions you want to push the team?
I don't really see much of the volatility. I think there's more egos in NA. I'll tell you that right now. But the HGC roster locks have kind of forced us to work together as a unit, and I think it's kind of been a good thing in a way. I'm glad that they allowed 2 roster swaps eventually. They're only originally going to allow 1, I believe. So,
yeah, I remember hearing that was something Naventic had fought for, was the 2 roster swaps.
Yeah,
They were
I was
kind of the leader of that.
Of it as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I actually had like a Reddit thread on a big rant on it, and it's the closest model I can bring to HEC is the LCS. And LCS has already gone through all these growing pains, and LCS Riot realized through their LCS that 2 roster swaps, you can maintain majority roster, and you can still get fresh new talent into all these teams. So I'm glad that Blizzard came to kind of the same decision.
Yeah, it definitely seems a lot more stable, especially when you compare it to the Dota scene, where after the major, there's just huge shakeup. International, giant shakeup. So it's kind of nice to see, like, you can call it a roster apocalypse, but it's much less. It's kind of like an earthquake rather than the world falling down around your ears.
Right.
Let's switch up. Let's get into you a little bit. Let's learn about Erho. How did you decide that you were going to be a tank main?
I kind of accidentally fell into it. At the time, historically in North America, there haven't been a lot of really good tank players. I guess, and melee players in general. When I first started playing the game and decided to try to take it a bit more seriously, every roster was looking for good melee players. So I just kind of fell into that role. Originally, I wanted to play support as my favorite role, but quickly learning about the competitive scene in North America, they needed tank players, so there was.
There you go.
I haven't been able to get out of the role because usually when I try out for a team, it's just like, well, we need melee players or melee flex or tank players, and then okay, well, I already play that, so instead of like, we really need a support player, so.
That's fair.
Yeah, definitely.
Are there any here based on this previous HGC meta? Were there any characters that you were kind of sad that never showed up? Like, were there any comfort heroes that you wanted to play that just you never got the chance to?
Stitches. I mean, I didn't really get to play. I'm a little upset that my role, I couldn't really play Dahaka. I still feel as if I'm the best Dahaka in North America, and I feel like I was as if I'm the best Stitches North America. Unfortunately, the way North American meta works and the way my team was functioning, I couldn't really play Stitches. I usually always had to be on a stun tank like Murden, ETC, not so much ETC, but like Murden, Varian, Anubarak, stuff like that, because that's just what my team needed me to play. So
that's fair. I like that answer. I like playing Stitches. I like playing Haka too. Haka's fun.
Yeah. Speaking of ETC, that probably was one of the more interesting moments in HEC. I believe you disconnected in a the bot ETC. Yeah. What was that? Or was it Murden?
It was Murden, yeah.
Murden, yeah. What happened there? You just was it a power outage or internet?
My power supply decided to go bad. What ended up happening? I thought it was my processor or my new graphics card. I just bought a new GTX 1080 Ti. I just overclocked my processor. Everything was running fine. I stress tested the whole system for like a day, and everything was running fine for a few days. And then during the game, my PC just like shut off. No blue screen, just completely shut off. It rebooted fine, and then it did the same thing in the next game, and then nothing would boot up. I was like, oh crap! I either fried the chip or something bad happened. Ended up just being the power supply. Luckily, I have a couple of graphics cards sitting around, so I was able to narrow it down to the power supply. So we're good. Went out to the next day at the Best Buy, bought a new Power supply and everything works fine.
There
So
you go.
God, that's awful.
yeah, and it was actually Murabot. And the situation we were in, we actually had the game fairly secured. We kind of
Mhm.
almost had them checkmated because we were so far ahead in structures on Sky Temple, and all we had to do is make sure they didn't start boss and take boss. They had a better boss control comp than we did. I believe they had like Tyrael and maybe Falstad. I can't really recall. I think they had Tyrael Falstad. So they had a lot of ways to secure boss if it were to die. So all we had to do in that position was just to make sure they didn't do boss for free and contest them if they did it. So and then basically play temples. So is luckily the Murden bot wasn't completely useless. I was probably out of everyone on my team, I was probably the best person to disconnect because it's really hard for them with their comp. I remember I think they had like a Zera or something. I can't remember. It's really hard for them to kill Murden basically.
Yeah.
Even a Murden bot will push R at a certain percentage of HP and then use his passive. So
That's great. So, what kind of so growing up, what kind of games did you play?
oh, I my first game I ever really played, to my knowledge, was the Sega Genesis and Sonic. So I started out playing platformers like that. I was given the choice as a wee lad between a Nintendo and Sega. I went with Sega. So I kind of regret it now as an adult. Kind of wish I had the more Super Nintendo experience as a child. But
I
then I
don't.
started playing PC games. Age of Empires, Battlezone. Anyone remembers Battlezone?
I vaguely
Battlezone 2.
remember Battlezone. We're
It was, it
we're
was
reaching back a ways. You're in your 30s, aren't you?
I'm actually 27. I'm turning 28 in a few months.
Okay, all right.
Hmm?
I'm 36, and like I'm sitting here thinking, wow, Battlezone. I haven't heard that game in a minute.
It's in the Age of Empires, the original one. So I started out with RTS and action RTS, and then I kind of fell in love with the RPG genre with World of Warcraft. So I was already a fan of stuff like Earthbound for Super Nintendo. I liked the RPG genre; it was really cool. So obviously, I fell in love with PC games, MMORPG. So
I have a question. Since you were a Genesis kid, did you ever play the Fantasy Star games?
I didn't have. I actually turned into more of a PC slash PlayStation kid when I got into my teens. Because, like I said, I really liked the RPGs, and the only system that had like RPGs on it was PlayStation. So no, I didn't really get a chance to try out Phantasy Star. I have heard of it though. I know it's an RPG for the Genesis. So
It's a good one.
mhm.
I,
I've heard good things about it. Yeah.
I speed run the Fantasy Star 4 in my spare time. So
Gotcha.
let's see. What else? Jimmy, you got some more questions for us?
Yeah, more, or well, I guess more on games you played growing up, and I guess more recently. What was Heroes your first competitive game, or did you try playing competitively in other games before Heroes?
So I was actually a lot of people actually know me from Guild Wars 2. I was considered during launch and some months after the most popular streamer to stream that game in the PvP area of that game. Um, I was pretty competitive in that game during the alpha, beta, and during launch. Fortunately, the game died. So that was my first, I guess, real dedicated competitive try. And then I've always been really good at MOBAs, but I've never really given it the good old college try to go competitive. So Heroes came out, and there's a lot of hype around the game. So I'm like, sure. I'll invest. I was at a point in my life where I was pretty secure financially. I didn't have a whole lot of obligations IRL, so I was just like, well, I'll give Heroes a try, and it ended up working out. So
What follow up to that? What's the appeal of Heroes to you personally over other MOBAs?
um, to be honest, it's just the biggest draw for me is the shortened game length. I know at first I didn't like it because I came from League and like Dota. I played a lot of Dota on the Warcraft 3 custom engine and all that stuff. So it's the big adjustment. I didn't like it. The only thing that drew me in at first was the heroes and the hero design. So Arthas is in the game, and like all these heroes, all these characters I love from like other Blizzard games were in this game. And the first thing that initially drew me in was the hero design. And then as I started liking the heroes more and more, I started to enjoy the maps, So that's what initially drew me in.
Nice. Going back to HGC as a whole, and what's coming up this weekend is the midseason brawl. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think NA or any other region has a chance to kind of challenge the leadership of China and Korea right now as far as the kind of the top dogs and professional heroes.
So historically, Koreans and Chinese have always been the strongest regions in Heroes of the Storm. I don't know what happened to North America. We were able to contend with EU, if not do better than when I played. I remember the Worlds at Korea that I attended. We did better overall as a region than Europe at that tournament. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if NA itself just got. I don't know how that happens. I've never been in this situation before where I see a region that performs equally as well, if not less than, and then all of a sudden maybe it's the rosters that went. But we've never been as bad as a region at world tournaments than we have in recent year. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you. I honestly don't know what happened because I wasn't in. Because I after Tempo Storm, I took a 6-month break from the game and I came back, and all the rosters, like the top teams, were full of players that were originally like on like the middle of the pack teams, and I don't know what happened. Like K1 CAF and iDream were on like a middle of the bottom of the tier team. I have no idea. So maybe they didn't practice as hard. I have no idea. I wish I had a better answer. I could be completely wrong. Maybe saw one of those guys in theory they just got way better at the game, which they did. They've gotten better. So and we just as a region haven't evolved as strongly as EU. Maybe EU has a bigger player base. I don't know. There's so many variables that could. I don't want to give the wrong answer. So
okay. What do you think NA can do to improve? Is it an infrastructure thing? Is it maybe a coaching thing? Where do you see areas that the NA as a whole can improve?
I definitely think it's mostly the thing that's holding NA back right now, in my opinion, is definitely the infrastructure. There's not a whole lot of org support in NA compared to other regions. Korea doesn't have a lot of org support, but they have a much better culture for it. And a lot of times, and their, I believe their version of HCC is done on a LAN. So they play on like no lag. So it's a much different culture appropriated thing to do this in China or Korea. And EU has much more support on the top end for their top end teams. I mean, I think Dig and Fnatic and Liquid are all involved, whereas in North America, the top dogs aren't even touching Heroes of the Storm. C9 left a while ago. TSM hasn't touched any, like Echo Fox is not involved. All the big name MOBA brands you expect to be in this game aren't here. So we aren't getting that top tier support that other teams are getting. So. Or other in other games. So
that's a very good point. Now that you bring that up, there's no. The biggest name team that I can think of off the top of my head is Naventic. That have
right. Tempo.
I would say. Tempo is the big one.
Tempo is one of the big ones too. But to be honest, outside of Hearthstone and some fighting games, like I don't know much of Tempo. Presence outside those other disciplines.
Hearthstone. They're huge in Hearthstone.
Huge. They sponsored a fighting game player, Chris G, there for a while, and he's moved to Evil Geniuses since then. But you're right. You're 100% correct on that. There's just not that big name support that you would expect.
And I think orgs are just hesitant to get involved because there's not a lot of return on investment. I've spoken to being in the HEC. I mean, if you want more evidence of this, Teammate, who's convincingly a second place team right now, getting a lot of in terms of exposure, they're probably getting the most exposure out of all the teams that are in HEC. Still don't have a sponsor. They have Roll20 now, but they just, having talked to sponsors in the past, they're just like, we just don't see that much ROI, return on investment, on this game. I personally don't see it. I guess it's something to do with like the league, like all the money that is in the league goes to the players. The orgs don't get any compensation for being in the league, so I think that has something to do with it. I'm just not really 100% on why but I guess because in my mind it's like you're guaranteed. I think it's like everyone 15 to 25K viewers on Twitch, and there's a lot of traffic on the website, so I don't see how there isn't an org that doesn't see even like a $2,000 ROI per month on this. So we even struggled to get orgs to be like, look, we only want like 2,500 3K a month from you guys, and then split it up between the players for salary. And they're just like, no, we just don't see the ROI there. as someone that used to work in parts of advertisement, I just don't see how you can get that many ad impressions and not see the ROI. So I don't know.
Do you think it's something Blizzard needs to explain better to some of these brands,
I think
or where?
yeah, I really think Blizzard needs to work harder with these orgs. Blizzard just needs to be like, look, even compensate the orgs for being in it, like, it's better it's easy for me to say that as a player, I don't know it from Blizzard's business end. So, but as a player, it would be much more financially sound for me if I had an org behind me on top of the league. If that makes sense. So it'd make my job more secure to make me more confident as a player, to know that A, I have the org backing me, and B, I have the league backing me. So both financially and and structure wise, it's easier for an org to provide us better structure. If our mouses go bad, it's like, oh no, I've got an org that can replace it, or oh, my power supply died, right? That's a good thing. Like, an org can be like, you know what, we'll get you a new power supply like right now from our sponsor, and we'll send you 2 of them so you have a backup one. You know what I mean? Just stuff like that. That's kind of stuff a player doesn't have. So,
a little bit of a side question with the HGC format being what it is, and comparing that to the previous schedule, the previous format where you had more time for LAN events, stuff like that, Heroes at DreamHack, what have you. Do you feel with the current league format being what it is, do you think that it might stifle outside LANs from participating in Heroes? Bloodlust being the exception and not the rule in this case.
I think Bloodlust is evidence that outside LAN. It just has to be Bloodlust, I believe, is crowdfunded, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So that's a little bit different. You're talking about like if IEM wanted to host a Heroes tournament, like Intel Extreme Masters or something. I don't see the league stifling it. I just don't think Heroes is big enough to host that big of a LAN. I mean, it'd be kind of a big investment for a third party to host a LAN. I don't think there's any rules saying that from the HGC saying that there can't be any LANs that can invite the top 8 teams. I don't remember reading that. So
I think
it's just a matter of the ROI thing, right? If we have a huge Heroes LAN here, is that going to draw an audience to our convention? Because that's what it basically is. It's just the way to draw an audience and get an ROI. So.
And it's interesting that you brought up the ROI because I do work with Beyond the Summit and behind the scenes, and I've been pecking at them for quite some time now. Hey, you guys should do a Heroes Summit. You guys should do a Heroes Summit. Like the Dota Summit, like the CS:GO Summit they just had here, recently. And they're like, they kind of hem and haw and talk about rate of return and stuff like that. And like they're the last answer I got out of one of the big 2 was that they're waiting to see if if HGC will continue on and stuff like that, and then they might start dipping their toes in the water. So it was very interesting that you started talking about ROI, and that got my ears up about outside tournaments that aren't Blizzard directly related.
Yeah, I mean, if Blizzard, in my mind, if Blizzard really cared about growing their scene, they would bring some of these. They would encourage big name orgs to come into their league, because not only would it would help cross promote their league too, because you have all these TSM fans that are going to TSM, and then what means they go on the TSM site to look up their League of Legends buddies or whatever. Like I'm a TSM fan. I love TSM. I go to their website, and on their main page, TSM Hots is going to Worlds or whatever. That helps cross promote their league. So if they're, what I mean, I just don't understand Blizzard's. I can't pretend to. I don't sit in their business meetings, so it would be nice if Blizzard's just like, okay, we want to help grow our esport. Let's give these orgs an incentive to come in. I mean, they already have good incentive for their players, but I think it can only help them grow. Me as a player, I would personally, if our orgs got an incentive to come in, I would be okay taking a paycheck cut, because the org would most likely compensate that anyway on top of the increased exposure. if that makes sense.
You know, that makes
So-
total sense. I
Mhm.
completely see where you're coming from on that.
Okay. Before we go, we kind of we'll try to keep these about 30 minutes or so. But I just want your thoughts. This is a fun question because it's kind of the joke on our show. Is what are your thoughts on Chen and where does he fit in
My
the meta
thoughts
right
on
now?
Chen.
Oh
You're
my
only going to
God.
get a serious answer, and it's. I think Chen is actually he has a spot in the meta, and he right now Zag. No, I'm telling you when. He's only a solo lane hero, and you only take him if you need to win your lane. Sorry,
It's all good. It's all good.
Vroom,
it's a
vroom.
motorcycle. From Broom. Yeah, I'm right next to like a kind of a busy road, and it's motorcycle season. Anyway, um, so Chen has a spot in the meta. It's if you need to win a solo lane, and he does really well against Zag.
He does.
Really well against Zag.
I will.
He is the best hero against Zag, without a doubt. Even to the point where he can almost win 2v1 lanes against Zag. So that's the
Yeah.
only time I take him. I think
I have a very hard time arguing with that because he brings it up because I'm our Chen specialist.
okay.
Like that's favorite hero, like, but I've just not had a good time with him recently. But yeah, the Zagara matchup is 100% free for Chen. Like you should barely take any damage in that lane. You're gonna get hit eventually, but like you should just be able to just bully her out of lane and make life really rough for her. So yeah, why did you do that to me, Jimmy?
'Cause
Only
it's
only
what we
two
have
maps
to do.
though. Only 2 maps. Dragonshire, she's of course, and then Braxis. Now I wouldn't take Chen on Braxis and Zagara if they have a 2-man. Never mind. Just those 2 maps. I don't want to get too much into the meta, like too much into the professional thought process. But
Yeah.
if you know Zag is soloing top, Chen is a solid choice.
There you go.
On those 2 maps.
I realized what was it, and then I joked around with our interview with Bad Benny. I said, basically, Chen is this: you win the solo lane, and then you lose the game.
Sometimes I don't know.
When
Just
I
depends, like
saw Casanova play Chen, my face screwed up in so much confusion. Why are you guys playing Chen? But like
he held his lane down. He held the 2v1, so and then we won the game in I think like 7 or 8 minutes. So
Jimmy, this is your fault.
Yeah.
Why does everyone take
I know.
Why
I
does
do
everyone
this
take
always.
elusive brawler?
elusive brawler.
We're against mage camp. Better take elusive
Oh.
brawler.
Yeah, no, elusive brawler actually is good into mages too, because like Chen's a really divey hero, and elusive brawler can dodge like 6 or 7 tower shots if you dive. So
Okay, that's fair.
So-
I suppose. I just
Anyways, we wanted to wrap it up, but I wanted to have some fun with that. But yeah, any shout outs you want to say to your fans, or anything you want to promote at the end of this?
I have nothing really to promote other than myself and my stream. It's twitch.tv, Erho TV, or you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com, Erho TV, same stuff. And then I shout out to Arthlon, my buddy Arthlon, Zix, for always encouraging me to play Rexar every game, improving me as a player day in, day out. Zix, what should I play here, Coach Zix or Rexar? I mean, what counter is this here? What should we pick? You guys should have picked Rexar. Thank you, Zix. I mean, so insightful.
that's great.
Well, there you have it. Stay tight, and we'll see you real soon.
Stay tight.
No, but seriously, thanks for coming on and
Yeah, for sure.
talking.
I had a good time.
It was a lot of good info. Really appreciate it.